May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So here in our gospel reading this morning, we have two disciples. One named Cleopas, who we know nothing else about, and one unnamed companion. It is the middle of the day, the brightness of the sun shining down on them as they make their journey to Emmaus, a village about a day's journey from Jerusalem. Why this journey? Why this destination? Luke does not tell us, only that this is where we find them on the day of the resurrection, walking to Emmaus. Perhaps more importantly, walking away from Jerusalem. They have heard the reports of that morning, of the woman running from the tomb. They have heard them say, "He is alive." Yet here we find them, here on this road, not staying, not remaining with the disciples, but here on the road to Emmaus, walking away. And as they walk, they talk and they argue, trying to come to terms with everything they've seen. Just a week ago, their Lord, their Master, walking into Jerusalem with the welcome of a king, confounding the leaders, inspiring the crowds. It seemed like revolution was in the air. But then that fateful night, when everything went wrong, when he was handed over by Judas, abandoned by these two along with everyone else, except a few women who followed and watched as he was shamed and beaten and crucified. Here was the end of all their hopes, all their living these past months, maybe years, all pinned on this man Jesus, who had been handed over, whose life had been taken away. It seems like they had been wrong about him after all. Things were not as they had seemed. And so here we find them on this day, this greatest day, not waiting with the rest of the disciples, but walking away. As we come together this morning in this season of Easter 2026, maybe it's a good time to ask ourselves, where are we headed? Where are we walking to in our lives right now? As individuals, as a community. Perhaps for some of us, this past season has been one of blessing, one of connection with God, of hearts set on fire, of faith strong and alive within us. But for others, perhaps it's been a hard season, or at least a mixed one. A time of dryness or doubt or pain. Pain in our lives, pain in the world around us. Wherever we feel we are or are going right now, most of us can probably relate to these disciples as they journey to Emmaus. Most of us have had times when it feels like we've just seen too much darkness, too much confusion, too much disappointment with God, with church, with ourselves. Perhaps that journey away, that journey to Emmaus, has looked appealing to us as well, whether in the past or even now. Perhaps we felt at times like we really just need a break or some time to really think through our questions, our wrestlings, our doubts, our fears. In a sense, that's what these disciples are doing on this journey to Emmaus. They've headed on their way out of Jerusalem, but still they're thinking, discussing, trying to put it all together. This Jesus they knew, or thought they knew, and the horror that was his crucifixion. They're trying to make sense of it all, trying to put together some kind of answer to the questions that haunt them, that weigh down their souls. So this morning, maybe we can ask ourselves not just where we're walking, where we're headed, but also what are our questions? What are the things we're thinking about, talking about on the road? Things that confuse us, maybe even keep us up at night. Things maybe weighty enough to direct our steps, whether or not we realize it, like those disciples walking down the road. Because it is on that road with the disciples heading out of Jerusalem, chattering away, that Jesus, the risen one, comes near. He comes and he walks beside them, comes quietly, unassumingly, unrecognized. What are you discussing together as you walk along? They stand still at the question, their faces downcast. Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? What things? And so it all comes out. The stories behind the questions, the longings behind the grief, all comes out as they pour their hearts out to this stranger, this ignorant stranger, who's come walking beside them on the road. About Jesus of Nazareth, they reply. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. What a dangerous thing it is to hope. What hurt, what agony, what confusion lie behind those words spoken on this dusty road to the stranger that has met them. This hope, this hurt, this despair. This is what takes them to Emmaus. They had hoped, but their hope, it seems, has failed them. Jesus, it seems, has failed them. They heard the story of the woman, heard Peter confirm it as well, but it was not enough to change things, really. The woman had not seen Jesus after all, and neither did they. Neither do they, even now, under the Sunday afternoon sun. How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Who is this stranger? Now so confident, so bold. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. This is not what they were expecting. Not what they were expecting at all from this ignorant stranger, who came to walk beside them. For now, this stranger is opening the scriptures to them, opening their minds to the scriptures, calling them the fool as they walk together along the road. What kindness, what humility we see here in Jesus, even as he calls them the fool. Jesus comes to them, these up to now unknown disciples, the ones walking away from Jerusalem, not at first to show himself, but to help them. And to do so, he comes as one who is hidden. He knows more than they do that they are lost on their own. How foolish you are. They do not understand. How slow to believe. They do not trust. Do not believe. He knows this, and so he has come to help them on the way. In some sense, we also are those who do not understand. We also are those who do not believe. In our distraction and wandering, in our confusion and doubt, we also need Jesus to come in the power of the Spirit and help us on the way. And maybe that's part of the invitation of our gospel reading this morning. The invitation to come with our questions, our doubts, our confusion, to bring these all to God, to invite Jesus to come beside us as we open the scriptures, and to ask him to reveal himself to us there. Yet never do we do this apart from our walk, our journey as disciples of Jesus, as his followers. Never do we do this apart from our heart, from our loving and believing in him. These belong together, feet and mind and heart, as they did for these disciples to whom Jesus drew near on the way. Yet still we can keep them apart if we want to. Jesus does not force himself on these disciples as they approach the village after all. He makes as if to continue on the way. But they urge him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." They invite him in. And so as we can ask ourselves in this season, where are we going? And what are our questions? Maybe a final question to ponder is, will we invite Jesus in? Wherever we come from, wherever we're going, in this time and as in all our worship, we are together asking God who in Jesus shows up as a stranger on the road, to open our minds and our hearts as we bring our questions before him, as we seek him in the scriptures. Yet still, in all of this, the disciples do not see Jesus. They do not recognize him. It is only when they invite him in to the intimacy of table that he finally reveals himself in the breaking of the bread. Will we invite him in? Even a lifetime is a short time to think through all the questions of our faith, to go through all our wrestlings, all our doubts. At the end, we won't have answered all our questions or heard all those that are being asked. We can't be comprehensive, and even if we could, there's a danger we might miss that most important thing. We might fail to see Jesus. And so, my prayer for us today and in this season as we gather to worship and as we're sent out into the world is that God would grant us what he granted to those disciples on the road. That in the midst of our doubts and our questions, our wanderings and confusion, he would walk beside us as we open up our hearts, as we offer up ourselves with our questions to him. That he would open up the scriptures to us to help us understand, but also that we would invite him in. No longer a stranger, but a friend. That we would see him in the breaking of the bread. That we'd be able to look back and say with those disciples, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked to us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? And that wherever we may have been headed before, we'd find ourselves driven toward Jerusalem, to the other disciples, to the company of faith, to share with one another and with the world that great news. We have seen the Lord. He is alive. Amen.